Perfect. Thanks, Abigail. So hi, everyone. My name's Amanda. I think I met some of you last time at the previous office hours, but I will be leading the office hours today. So to get us started, I think last time if you were here, I did a little presentation on Did You Know? And in light that it's Valentine's Day, this is going to be a Did You Know Valentine's Day edition. So the first mass-produced Valentines began in the 1840s, and by that I mean it was Valentine's cards being mass-produced was in the 1840s, which is kind of cool. The first heart-shaped box of chocolates was then introduced in 1861, which is, I'm actually kind of surprised it's been around that long, to be honest. The tradition of giving V-Day flowers dates back to the 17th century. Nearly 250 million roses are grown in preparation for Valentine's Day, which is also insane that many roses are specifically grown for one day. Americans send 145 million V-Day cards each year. And then for those of you, maybe you've heard of this before, but Loveland, Colorado has a remailing program where you can actually send mail to a Loveland post office. So you can have like an envelope, and in that envelope, you can include cards, and then they'll take those cards out, and each year they have like a special stamp that they put on them, and then they'll remail them. So this was an image of the stamp that they used last year. So it's kind of cool that they do that. I think there are deadlines around it. So if you're interested in doing it next year, just make sure to look up those deadlines. So, all right, well, I guess we will get into the nitty gritty of why we're all here. So the agenda for today, we have a guest speaker from the BHA licensing team to talk about licensing. We have some technology updates, including an update regarding technology trainings. We will have a demo for ladders, which I'm sure some of you might be familiar with. We have an update regarding behavioral health claims and eligibility. And then lastly, an update for bed tracking and care coordination tools. And then we'll kind of open up the discussion at the end. So I'm going to hand it off to the licensing team. So just let me know when you need me to advance the slides.
Will do. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Zoom tends to not agree with my laptop on the audio side very well. Great. Okay. Awesome. Let me know if it starts to go a little bit south. It's done that historically. I might have to reposition my face if that happens. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariana Sears. My pronouns are she, her. I am one of the Safety Net licensing managers. I'm joined today by Victoria Lasky. Pronouns are also she, her. Got a little wave there. She is the Associate Director of Safety Net Licensing. So for the purpose of our presentation today, I'm going to be running through a handful of slides, and Victoria will be available as questions come up or to kind of jump in if there's anything that she needs to add there. But for the next few slides, I'll be walking you through some information around licensing. So before jumping into that, I do want to say, I saw Kristen saying this is your first office hours. This is mine as well. I was super excited that we received the invitation to come and check this out because I've been wanting to do that for a while. And then being asked to present something on licensing was kind of the cherry on top. I will say I made a mistake in not asking how many people to expect. I'm a little bit intimidated by 65 participants. So gonna just go ahead and get that out there. Okay, audio is breaking up. I'm starting to see it happening. I'm gonna stop moving my face. Can you hear me better now? Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and advance, and we're gonna start with the takeaway message for us in this moment of regulatory transition. Really, the bottom line we want to be able to say is please don't panic. We know there's a lot of things that are happening right now. There's a lot of regulatory change, a lot of licensing change. I saw, Rebecca's presentation today is fairly lengthy, looking at ladders updates. There's a lot of things that are moving and changing. And it's very natural to feel that anxiety that comes along with that discomfort while things are settling back in. So please know that that discomfort that you might be feeling with all of this change that's happening, the BHA staff, we're right in there with you, and we're working through all of this together. So hopefully the information that we put together today will reach a handful of you and really be helpful in starting to quell a little bit of that anxiety that we might be feeling around this change. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at kind of high level. Oh, let's see. I'm just looking at the chat there. I don't know if that's related to me or something. There we go. Thank you.
Nope, Mariana, and you don't have to monitor the chat. So if there are any questions, I'll capture them and we'll bring them up again when we get to the Q&A and discussion portion of today, if that sounds good to you.
That sounds fantastic. So we're going to start with high level on the licensing side, what's out and what's in. Per legislation and updates that have happened over the past few years, the state of Colorado is officially moving away from utilizing substance use disorder treatment licenses that are historically issued by the BHA, mental health clinic, community mental health clinic designations that are issued by the BHA, as well as the behavioral health entity license, which has really only been applicable up until this point for a small sliver of providers on the mental health side, overseen by the CDPHE public health environment. So that doesn't necessarily mean that those services are going away, but they are transitioning into what is becoming our foundational basis of the behavioral health entity, or BHE license, that is being overseen and monitored by the Behavioral Health Administration from this point on. So another note that you will see of a particular designation that is being phased out of the state is community mental health centers, and that designation that's historically been assigned by the Behavioral Health Administration, that will be transitioning over into a comprehensive safety net approval that will be issued by the BHA. So hopefully kind of taking that step back and just level setting here on the left-hand side, these are probably more the familiar terms that you have seen up until this point. Over the next year or so, those will be phasing out, and you will start hearing a lot more often behavioral health entity, BHE license, and or safety net approvals. Next slide, please. So what we put together today were a handful of slides that really kind of represent some themes that we have heard from other providers during like our technical support sessions or emails that we're receiving of, I'm really not sure how to navigate this area. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here or where to start. And so hopefully this does meet the mark of something that is useful for you all. We definitely do welcome, after this is done, going through the slides that we have put together today. If they don't meet the mark of what you need, please do provide that feedback to Abigail and Amanda. We really want to make sure that we take that information forward and develop more resources and more ways to provide this information in the way that it needs to be communicated. So I'm going to start with our rule volume navigation. This is not something that typically we feel the need to walk through with a lot of providers, but we have a really unique situation with our behavioral health rules based off of this transition that we're undergoing as a state right now. So the behavioral health provider rules live on the Secretary of State's website at 2 CCR 502-1. And we'll have the links. I can probably try to pop it in the chat, unless Victoria, would you mind grabbing the link for that and popping it? Thank you. So normally you would just go in and see a very clean, easy to follow rule volume that's just very straightforward. Right now, we have a bit of a situation where our BHA provider rules is essentially doing a bit of double duty until this transition for the state is finalized. So what you're going to see when you open our BHA provider rules right now are essentially two rule volumes that live right next to each other in the same space. So again, don't panic. When you open it up, you're going to see a document that is 480 pages long. That does not mean that 480 pages of regulation is going to be applicable to you and every single individual provider. This rule volume and the double duty that it is doing is meant to cover every single provider across the state that is in a different point of transition. And so it really needed to cover all bases of providers who have already transitioned to a behavioral health entity license, providers who are not going to transition to a behavioral health entity license until the end of this year. So essentially what we did was put the updated provider rules, which are in a new chapter structure, at the very beginning of the BHA provider rules. And you will see that noted where we have example of smaller number citations, chapter 1.1, 2.2, 3.3. You will know that you're in the updated provider rules if you see those smaller citations that don't have long 21.xyz citations that we're familiar with. And then we left the section-based rules that we've been subject to up until this point at the very, very end of this rule volume. Again, that was done intentionally so that it could capture a number of providers who didn't quite make the transition into the updated chapter structure in that first update that we just did, but they will eventually be moving into that chapter structure so that everything will, hopefully this time next year, be a nice, clean, chapter-based BHA provider rule that will be very easy to navigate. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this, those pages 3 through 321, that's where you're going to find the truly updated BHA provider rules that the state will be subject to, everyone will be subject to over this rolling transition. And then the latter half, 322 to 480. Those are what we're calling those legacy provider rules. That's where you're going to find the substance use disorder treatment license, the clinic designations, which are in the process of being phased out, but also recovery service support organizations and controlled substance licensing, which lives there right now until we can update it into the chapter structure. A lot of information, but hopefully that helps explain why we have such a gigantic provider rule volume at the moment. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I briefly mentioned, this is a rolling transition. There was no way to say, these rules were adopted on November 3rd of 2023. So starting January 1st of 2024, all providers are going to be subject to these updated BHA provider rules. There was no way realistically to make that happen for providers or for the state in general, providing that regulatory oversight. So we are approaching this as a rolling transition that's based on a number of factors. So a couple key dates that we're going to walk through here. January 1st of 2024. That is the first date that the BHA provider rules, the updated version that we just went through the rule process for, officially took effect, and BHA was able to start issuing BHE licenses. Another key date to keep in mind is June 30th of 2024. This one I do want to highlight because knowing that change is hard, right? And it takes a little bit of time to get things to really align. One of the asks was to write in a period of delayed enforcement for some of our early adopters of this BHE license. What this essentially means is those agencies that transition early in this calendar year, so January 1st to June 30 of 2024, are subject to a slightly different approach of enforcement than those agencies that are going to transition at the latter half of this year. This gives the early transitioning agencies a little bit more time to work with the rules and get familiar with them so that they can come into compliance. By the time July 1st comes around, they're going to be ready to go. And the expectation is for other providers who have that later transition period, they're going to start looking at those rules and coming into compliance. Right now, they're going to start working on that process so that come July 1st, they're going to be ready to go because they already have that runway set up with the rolling transition cycle. The other date that I would highlight there was July 1st of 2024. Again, that is one day after the delayed enforcement period. And so that date is significant because from July 1st going forward, the expectation is that providers will be in compliance with the rule volume at the point of application for their BHA license. And then the other really important one, since this is a rolling transition, it's very much based off of your particular agency and your licensing cycle if you're an existing provider. So your agency's cycles and expiration dates are very important as we're figuring out what does this transition mean for you in your particular circumstance. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of practice. Part of what Abigail said was this group is great about really wanting to take something that's applicable and make sure that we can move it forward. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this one and do a scenario. So today happens to be February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Our pretend agency here, we're going to say is currently substance use disorder treatment licensed by BHA and expires on October 11th of 2024. This agency has 2 locations and 1 location that has a controlled substance license. So I'd like to take a minute and see if anybody is willing to potentially put themselves out there and help me figure out, based off that slide that we just looked at, highlighting what are key dates that we want to take a look at and looking at this transition, what might my agency's key dates be? If anyone's willing to put that in the chat or potentially come off mute. This is math. I definitely had to use a calculator. Okay, I see you July 1. Thank you, Sarah. And Lori, you came off mute?
Yes, I agree, July 1 as well.
Okay, absolutely. Any other key dates that are jumping out to people? Something that's very specific to my pretend agency here, the date of expiration, 10/11/2024. What that tells me is August 11th. That's getting very mathy. Let's hit the slide once and see if that's accurate. Oh, so close. So 10/11 of 2024. That's one of the key dates that I want to highlight because that tells me that is my point of transition in this rolling transition period, right? I want to keep my agency properly licensed so that I have a smooth transition from today, Valentine's Day of 2024. I want to make sure that I get through that October 11th date without having a lapse in my license. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that October 11th date and go subtract 90 days. That's where I was thinking August might have come into play there. I want to give myself plenty of time to work on this application. So I think 60 to 90 days, I'm guessing the August was probably about a 60-day window. Give yourself 60 to 90 days before your expiration to really start working in ladders and submit your letter of intent. That way we can troubleshoot if there's any issues in ladders. By this point, there shouldn't be, but that gives us an opportunity to really make sure that you have your application completed in full and we don't run the risk of running up too close to your licensing date lapsing. So let's take one step further and think about this context here about how the BHA provider rules might apply to my particular agency. Remember that we talked through legacy rule is something that is the SUD licensing that exists right now. That's where controlled substance licensing lives. And that is going to continue following my agency through the natural expiration of my existing license. So maybe think about it for a minute. And then let's go ahead and hit this cursor, please. So this one, we picked one that was a little bit tricky just to look at a couple nuances. This is a very tricky scenario because we have a number of providers, hundreds of providers across the state that are in very different points of this transition. Some have controlled substance licenses, some have very straightforward, just substance use disorder treatment licenses. Some have multiple sites and some only have one. So there are so many nuances and variations that we want to show what this process looks like as we're walking through it. So using the application of the provider rules from today, through October 10th, the day before my license naturally expires, those legacy rules are going to apply for both my substance use disorder and my controlled substance licenses, right? So all of those sections I'm already familiar with, 21.210, 21.300. My agency is still subject to those up until October 10th. Beginning on October 11th, the date that my agency naturally expires, the updated provider rules, that chapter-based structure is going to start applying to my BHA license services. Essentially, that replaces my substance use disorder treatment license. So I'm going to need to be familiar with that updated structure, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 4. But also in this case, certain sections of those legacy rules that are very specific to my controlled substance license. So again, we picked one that had a little bit of an extra nuance, just to show that these are the extra factors and steps that we might need to go through for each individual agency to make sure we get you the right transition for yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where we're hoping somebody might be brave and be willing to offer up their agency's adventure, their 201 agency adventure. So we'd like to do something very similar to what we just did, but with a very practical and relevant example. Is there anybody who would like to share a couple bits of information about their agency so that we can walk through this process together?
I can.
Thanks, Lori.
So, yeah, you're welcome. So we're dually licensed, so I'm trying to track this as a substance use outpatient and a mental health clinic. And our license, I think, I always get my designations wrong, sorry. So I don't know if you just want to focus on substance uses, because we also have different levels of substance use, so I don't know if then that plays a piece, like we have level 1, level 2, those kinds of things.
Lori, this is perfect. This is perfect, right? This is exactly why this is so complicated and daunting for people, right? Because there's so many variables there. What I would love to do with that is, I heard in there that you are duly licensed by the Behavioral Health Administration for your substance use disorder treatment, as well as a community mental health clinic designation.
Yes.
Okay. Are you one of the fortunate ones where they expire on the same day?
Yes.
Yay! So that's one of the cleaner ones that we're going to have. What is your date of expiration for those cycles?
August 15th-ish.
Beautiful. We'll go with August 15th. So August 15th of 2024. They both expire on that same day. So let's take this and kind of play this back, right? What are our agency's key dates in this case?
So 90 days, May, June, July, August. So be May, June, like June 15th would give 90 days-ish. So June, July, August. Yeah, so June 15th would be the key date.
Okay.
That would give us 90.
I had to cheat and pull up a date calculator.
Yeah.
But I love what you're doing there, right? So we're taking that August 15th. That is absolutely one of our main key dates, right? And then we're going to work our way back from that. 90 days, according to this date calculator from August 15th, I'm seeing May 17th. So anywhere between 60 to 90 days before that date of expiration. So the earliest, May 17th, you could start your licensing process by doing your letter of intent and starting to work down that path to make sure you're going to be good to go. Connecting that back, your effective date is August 15th. That is going to be after our period of delayed enforcement. So that means that your agency is expected to start looking at the rules now so that you will be ready and have a completed application at the time of your submission and when you're finally ready to process your license. Does that make sense? Yay.
Okay. And
Okay.
all of that is in, I'm guessing we'll be in the later demonstration and ladders of where to get all that kind of thing.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And so that ended up, it feels really, really complicated, and there are very nuanced situations that we run into. This one ends up being one of the cleaner ones because they expire on the same date. So that is a very fortunate one for us. Okay. And so BHA provider rules apply. You're still subject to your legacy SUD license and your CMHC designation up until August 14th. Beginning on the 15th, you're hitting the ground running with BHA updated rules. Beautiful. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Next slide, please. Okay, so going back to what do I do with this next? I know that Rebecca's going to come on and provide some really helpful guidance looking in ladders. So this information will make some more sense after looking at that. So again, between that 60 to 90 days, there's no reason that you have to limit yourself to that 60. If you need that extra buffer, you can certainly go up to 90. You're going to start this process by submitting a letter of intent in ladders. If you're a brand new provider who is not connected with BHA or the health department right now, you're going to start that process when you're ready, when you've already looked through the BHA rules and you have everything kind of ready to go. You're going to receive an updated access to ladders and login information within a week or two. If you are an existing provider, this is going to be an updated access point to the ladders system that is going to have 2024 somewhere in your username, right? So you're going to stop using your old access point to ladders and you're going to start using that 2024 one from this point forward. You'll log into ladders, complete your application, make sure that you have everything to go, pay for your fees, working on your background checks and all of that. All of this is listed on our laws and rules page, and certainly reach out to your licensing manager if you have any questions. Next slide, please. This I actually kind of started to get ahead of that. I forgot that I had this slide on there. This just came up officially yesterday. We had up until this point, part of this transition is we're using the same system. It's still ladders, but you're going to have a different access point. Providers had asked up until this point, and I'm worried about not being able to get into my legacy ladders. I can't see what my history is there, and they wanted to have both access points open. In practice, what we have seen over the past month or so is multiple usernames in the same licensing system while we're going through a period of transition is really causing a lot more confusion and frustration and mistakes than it really needs to do. So we're going to start flipping that script and try something a little bit different to make this easier on providers and hopefully start to make that access point more obvious. What we're going to do, and this message will be coming out starting here. This is the first public time discussing it, and then it will be coming out in newsletters and through ladders as well. But we're going to start manually deactivating those legacy ladders accounts from January 1st through June 30th of 2024 from the provider view. That doesn't mean your history gets lost. That doesn't mean that you cannot, that it can't be reactivated if you want it for some reason. But what this does mean is that if you try to log into legacy ladders and you're supposed to be in the updated BHA version because you're transitioning, you'll get an error message. And that's your hint to say, oops, I'm going into the wrong one. I need to find my other username and try it that way. Again, history will not be lost. We can help retrieve anything that you need, but hopefully this will be a little bit easier. And then we're going to do the same thing we just did here, right? Where we continue to evaluate those trends, see if this is helpful or harmful, and then we're going to find a responsive next step if we went down a path that's not the best. Next slide, please. Remember, don't panic. We're walking through this together. Yeah, we're going to get this taken care of. And one last slide for me. So when in doubt, we're going to pop this link into the chat as well. There are lots of resources on here that are being updated on a regular basis. There's a transition guide that you can walk through. There are frequently asked questions, lots and lots of information. Work these tools and get familiar with everything that's on there. If you need, you can absolutely reach out and contact your agency's licensing manager. And we are also offering technical support sessions for these transitioning providers where you pick a 30-minute window that works for you. You have Rebecca on one side and a licensing manager on the other to look and to answer your very specific questions in real time. That is all that I have. Thank you for your time and your participation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so, so helpful. I know a ton of people have been having questions about licensing. So as a reminder, we all know that this is being recorded, so this will get sent out if you want to go back and reference anything. We will also send out these slides and all of the links within it. Abigail, was there anything in the chat?
So for sake of time, I think all of the questions were answered in the chat other than one, which I will find. And then just so folks know, I put this in the chat as well, but we'll take those questions and answers from the chat and we'll provide a synopsis of them in our follow-up email. So sometimes I'll read out the question and answers, but because there's been so many, I will write them up and send them via email if that's okay. And then the one question that wasn't answered in the chat was from Lara Dekas. Does the essential safety net provider license exist separately, or does it require BHE license?
So I do think I wrote an answer to that, but I'm happy to read that. So it is separate. The provider, if the provider is not required to have that BHE license, then that's not a requirement for essential approval. For example, if you're only required to have a DORA license or a CDPHE license. So that is separate.
Got it. Thank you, Victoria. Sorry, I missed your response to that. So thank you for being lovely on chat. Back to you, Amanda.
Awesome, thanks. All right. So just a quick update. We will get to ladders. I know we just mentioned that, but some other technology updates. So in regard to trainings, we are doing some redesign for training and process and materials. So for the time being, some of the consistent trainings that we've had are being canceled for the time being, but we will have more info to come at the next office hours of the status of those and when those will be returning. So definitely reach out to me if you have any questions as well about that. Okay, so now for the famous ladders, I will pass it over to Rebecca and just let me know when you want me to advance.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Mays, she, her. I am the ladder systems admin and also provide a great deal of the bulk of ladder support. So when you reach out for questions about your account, it is generally me that is responding on the other side. As Mariana talked about, we had a major upgrade to the ladder system this past fall. And what I'm going to do is walk you through what this now looks like. The screen that we see here is our ladders homepage. You reach this once you've signed in with your username and password. Again, if you are getting into your BHE, you will still see this page once you sign on with your new username and password. So if you've been in here before, it should look fairly familiar. If not, welcome to the ladders homepage. On this page, the very first thing that you will do when you are starting your BHE application is you will scroll down to the very bottom of the screen and you'll see the initial application. You will click on the little pencil that's next to it, and that will give you access to your first application in the ladder system. Next slide. And you can push play. So what this is showing you is that on the first page of that initial application, there are several options for you to choose from, depending on the type of license, designation, or approval that you are looking to get with the BHA. As you saw, when this went through, once you hit that checkbox, a tab will open up on the top that will allow you to fill out the corresponding license. Amanda, you can do the next page. I've got it highlighted over there as well. So you'll see that each of these boxes is checked and there is a corresponding license application page, at the top. So if you check a box, it will appear. If you uncheck a box, it will disappear. And this will allow you access to the different types of applications that we have available for the BHA. Next slide. This is the top of the behavioral health entity license. This is one of the main licenses that many of you will be applying for. It has a license. You'll work through this, check off the different types of services that your site offers. Next slide. This is the 2765 designation application. Again, this is a pretty common one that many of you will be applying for. Just like the other one, you'll just work right through this application. Most of these are fairly simple and have a lot of instructions on how to work through the application. Next slide. Something that hasn't changed, the Upload Documents tab. If you've ever been in the licensing system before, this is the page that you will upload documents to. There are newer instructions on the type of documentation that you need to upload for your application. Next slide. And then we also have a fee summary screen that is within the application as well, so that you are aware of the different type of fees that is associated with each of the applications, so that you are knowledgeable when you go ahead and pay for your fees. Next slide. So once you've made it through that process, again, fairly simple. You're just adding agency information, address information, the different types of services for the different applications that you are looking for, and you will hit submit. Once you hit submit, go ahead, next screen. At this time, you will end up on the payment page where there is another fee summary. Right now, our payment system is currently down. We are still working to get this up and going, working with our payment vendor to try to get this back up for everyone so they can make their payments. So at this time, you will see once you hit submit, you will be taken to a screen that says the system is still down. And there will be no option to pay your fees at this time, but rest assured your applications are still being submitted to your licensing provider. So just because you've reached the screen doesn't mean that the application hasn't been submitted. It is transmitted separately from the fees page. Once we've gotten this up and running, anybody that has submitted an application and has not paid via paper check payment will be sent instructions on how to go back into the system and pay. Next slide. For those providers that have multiple sites, you will need to add each additional location using a separate application. To do that, you'll go back to your main ladders page. You will go to the add a site or make a modifications section, and you will do create new. Once you hit that button, it's going to look exactly the same as the initial application, and it'll be the same process. You'll work your way through for that particular site, what licenses or designations or approvals you want to add for that site, upload documents, and then work your way to the end and submit the application again. Next slide. This is what the screen looks like once you get to that modification application. Next slide. And again, it looks exactly the same, just a little bit different on language at the top. Next slide. And then the other area that we've had some major upgrades to, as Mariana was talking about, everything now is separated out into chapters. So when you get into your policies and procedures section, you will see the rules are separated out by chapter. We are hoping that this makes it a lot easier for you to find the particular rule that you are looking for. So this has been improved with some feedback from you all. Next slide. And then, as always, if you guys have any additional questions with the ladder system, if you're running into any issues with the applications or any other part of the ladder system, please reach out to our ladder support email. And that was it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We have one question from the chat. So Barbara asks, will we be able to upload policies rather than having to copy and paste them?
I can definitely answer that, and Mariana can definitely offer more to that if we need to, but no, the way that the system is set up, we still need our providers to enter in the text from their policies and procedures. The licensing team doesn't really have a way, and the system doesn't have a way to parse through everything in one document. Mariana, anything else to offer add on that? Yeah, so we are hoping there are less sections now within the system. So we are hoping that you're able to chunk more of your policies into the system as you add them into ladders.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Rebecca. any other questions that folks want to come to voice on around the ladders demo before we move on to a quick update from Justin Mann, who will be talking about behavioral claims and eligibility? Okay. Oh, Barbara, do you have another question? Go for it.
Yes, I had a question. I didn't mean to clap. I meant to raise my hand. So, is two questions there. So is that going to be in the future that we're going to be able to upload policies? Because I mean, if you've got lots of policies to upload as we're going to have, and they're multi-page, it's not easy to just be copying and pasting them into the system.
It's a great question, Barbara. I don't have an answer, but it is definitely an issue that has been raised by multiple providers, and we will work in the future to try to just make the process simpler.
Well, is there a way to use, because there is another feature for uploading documents that you showed us. So can we just use that upload documents feature?
Mariana, do you want to speak to maybe why we can't utilize just uploading the document? Yes, thank you for the question, Barbara. So this really part of it is we really need to have this contained in a way where we can have a consistent way that we're measuring a provider and an agency's application of those policies and procedures, and having hundreds of documents for if every site is doing it a little bit differently, it makes it really hard to do a consistent review of what those expectations are. Like Rebecca said, we intentionally with this took the opportunity to pause and reflect on that, and to try to not break down in ladders to very small granular chunks where it doesn't naturally lend itself to a traditional policy and procedure, right? They're bigger sections now, where it should be much easier to cut and paste that relevant information over. But unfortunately, it's just this is the system that we have, and having it aligned with where that expectation is how our system supports that.
And is there going to be any messaging system? I know with coffee, when there's a message, you get an email that says there's a message in coffee for you, basically, that's the CDPHE system. And I know that with ladders, I've always just had to go in and check every day to see if there's something that my licensing manager or whomever put something in there for me. Is that going to change anytime soon?
I am going to have to say, yeah, we will definitely look into that. I didn't realize that that was an issue, that providers weren't getting notification when their licensing manager had put a message in the system. So thank you for raising that, and we will definitely look into that.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. That's great feedback. I might reach out to you because those were some really great pieces of feedback on the ladders. When we always really love those pieces of feedback about how our technology systems could, be improved in terms of usability. So thank you a lot for that feedback. That's really helpful.
I love giving feedback. Just ask Victoria.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. All right. And then I'll just say, Laura asked another question in the chat. Does the essential safety net provider license go through ladders as well? And yes, that is correct. Mariana clarified that in chat.
Can I follow up with another question? Sorry for being so ornery about this today. So we're a federally qualified health center, so we won't be required to become a behavioral health entity, right? F2HC license stands on its own. However, we do have outpatient SUD licenses, which you could probably tell from earlier in the chat that we are surrendering, and those were expiring this October. So we've been doing that through ladders for the last couple of years, and I have tons of feedback about ladders someday if you would like to hear that on a separate occasion. If we are surrendering those licenses and they expire in October, did I hear correctly before that you are granting something for people not in ladders by the end of February? You're putting those old ladders roles, I don't even know what to call it, to the side. I'm confused about what's happening in ladders related to licenses that do not expire in the time period that you guys were talking about. Am I making sense?
I think that might have been something that I was speaking to and maybe did not explain it very clearly. So there, I think maybe talking about your situation and your dates might make sense there. So October, right? You're surrendering. You're no longer going to move forward with your substance use.
Yeah.
Correct. So you're not going to be transitioning that to a behavioral health entity. You're going to stand on the FQHC
Right.
license. Okay. So
However, yeah, it gets more complicated because we are considering applying to become an essential safety net provider.
Okay.
So we would still need our account in ladders. And so I guess the part of the question is the timing of that. And I thought I heard someone here about something happening in ladders at the end of February if things were not moving forward in ladders. Did I hear that correctly? Maybe I misunderstood.
I think I know what you're talking about. Let's erase that. That's getting a little bit twisted in there. I think for your purpose, that the next step is going to be for that essential safety net provider application, letter of intent. Letter of intent. That's going to get you your updated application or your updated username to get into ladders, and that's where you will apply to be a safety net provider. Don't worry about the February stuff. It's not going to impact you at all.
Okay, and then because my understanding of the safety net provider license is that they can be applied for anytime. There's no due date, so it doesn't have to be done anytime. Okay. It's all very confusing, and I know that you guys are doing the best you can, but sometimes referencing like 480 pages of rules doesn't necessarily actually help us figure out what we need to do. And I'll be happy if there's improvements to ladders, as ladders has been really not the easiest thing to do every 2 years for the last 10 years.
Thank you for that, Laura. I think that's fair, absolutely. If you are willing to, if you can look at some of the resources on the laws and rules page that was put into the chat, I think that might be really helpful because that does break down some of that larger you're referencing into smaller bite-sized chunks. And I'm hoping that there's something in there that would meet your needs. And if there's not, and you want something specific, please let us know. We're still willing to try to make something that's going to be more user-friendly.
Yeah, thank you. I've been looking at that, and maybe we might need a technical piece, but adding the FQHC piece to it just also makes it very confusing because not everything applies to us. And hey Elizabeth, no, I'm with Colorado Coalition for the Homeless in downtown Denver.
Thanks, everyone. I'm just so we have about 10 minutes left. So if it's okay with everybody, I would like to move us on to the last two sections. And Laura, if it's cool, I re-put the link for the technical support. And then we also have that email link in there. But thank you so much for your questions. Alrighty, Justin.
Hi, folks. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Justin Mann. I use he, him pronouns. I am a senior technical advisor here at the BHA. This will, if you do not know what I'm about to say, if this doesn't sound familiar to you, it probably does not apply to you, but I want to make sure that we get this information out to anyone who it maybe does apply to. So if you can move forward one slide. If you have ever logged into the Colorado Interchange, also known as the Medicaid MMIS, also known as the provider portal, you may, in order to check eligibility for someone that you are providing services for against their Medicaid, you may have noticed the BHA benefit plan showing up as eligibility. And this has caused some confusion on the Medicaid side as to whether they are billable as fee-for-service under Medicaid or if it's something different. We are going through some changes right now, and going forward, you will, in the near term, you will no longer see BHA benefit plan. You will instead see BHA not billable or just not billable against an eligibility line. In the future, that line will disappear entirely. This does not impact any BHA funded services. If you're providing BHA services through a BHA funded contract, you will continue to provide the same services that you are providing now. This does not impact any funding, service offerings, etc. This is merely an administrative update within the software. And so you should just continue to provide services as you have been. And this has mostly been on the Medicaid side, but wanted to make sure that everyone on this side also heard that if you are wondering what the heck that is and why it is showing up, It is merely to stop people thinking that they can submit fee-for-service claims against the BHA benefit plan, because it is not a Medicaid benefit plan. That's all. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. But again, it should not impact too many people on this side. And hopefully you have no idea what I'm talking about, and your day continues as normal. That's all. Thanks all.
Thanks, Justin. Let's see. Looks like Elizabeth asked a question. Any update on specs and onboarding for ASOs?
This is to, are you asking about onboarding to the interchange?
Yes.
Sure. So the, I want to say this, make sure I say this right. I don't believe that we have a requirement for ASOs and MSOs to onboard before the BASO switchover. So if you are, you can onboard if you would like to get ahead of the curve. And if you would like to do that, please reach out to me, and we can discuss the specifics of that. But I don't believe that there is a requirement for ASOs or MSOs to onboard before the switch over to the BASO entity, and then it would only be BASO's onboarding to the interchange. I believe that is the correct statement.
Okay, I'll follow up with you, Justin, because
Okay.
in the ASO contracts, and the last thing we heard from Dan Bortherm was that we needed to be onboarded in fiscal year 24, so by June 30th of this year. But if it's changed where it's only going to apply to Bahasos, that's even better.
Yeah, let's confirm that. That sounds like
Okay.
a good thing to confirm.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let me check with Dan as well on that contract, on which contract provision he's referring to. But please shoot me a note. Let's have a conversation, and we will have a definitive answer for you before the next office hours.
Great. Thank you, Justin.
My apologies for any confusion or stress that may be causing you.
That's okay. We'll get it taken care of.
All right. Well, I know we only have about 6 minutes left, so I'm gonna, there's gonna be an update regarding bed tracking and care coordination tools.
Yeah, and I'll make this quick. So y'all heard it here first. So there will be a newsletter announcement that will go out shortly after this call. Amanda, if you want to go to the next slide. So I think folks who have been to office hours before have heard me and come and talk about bed tracking, referrals, and care coordination tools that the BHA is in the progress of designing. We had previously thought that an MVP version of that tool would be available for release in early January. We've had to delay the launch because of feedback from providers like you on the design and usability of those tools. We really want to make sure that when we launch, we're creating an efficient and valuable experience providers and not adding to administrative burden, in fact, reducing administrative burden. So we just needed a little bit more time before we feel confident about releasing those tools with those values. And we've decided that in the interim, before a full launch, we will be running, I actually updated this slide. It's a 1-week pilot of our bed tracking tool to gather additional feedback from providers. This is going to be an opportunity that is only available right now to EM resource providers that are currently inputting their bed availability for BHA requirements. And if you are an eligible provider, you will be getting a personalized invitation from the BHA technology team. So if you are applicable to and want to participate in that pilot, you will be hearing from me. Otherwise, we will keep you posted via email communications and meetings like this about a revised launch date and any further developments. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the provider services team at our support email, and I will put that in the chat as well. Any questions on that announcement before we move on to Q&A with what time we have left? Yeah, Justin, go for it.
I am going to jump back in because I have spoken to Dan and Elizabeth and all the other questions about the BASO onboarding. I will get you an absolutely official statement on this before the next or by in the next office hours, but I do not believe that you actually have a contract provision to onboard 2 ASOs this year. So if I am incorrect about that, let's talk about that. But we are going to, it's just going to be BASOs that onboard to the interchange. If you would like to, if for some reason you want to get ahead of the curve, let me know. But the expectation at this point is that BASOs will be the only folks that onboard to the interchange, and then everything else will be reported up to BASOs, and they will report to us. I will get that in much more pretty language and official language, but hopefully at least that will put your mind at ease about what the expectation is before June.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, well, I know information overload, we just threw a lot of information at everybody. So if you do have any outstanding questions, want to open the floor up, and as some of this information resonates with you as well, feel free to reach out to us via email and we can answer those questions in an email too. So okay, I'm not seeing any questions at this time, but feel free to come off mute or put them in the chat. With a minute remaining, just wanted to put the plug in for our future office hours. We are going to be having them all year, but we just included for the next couple of months. So the next one will be March 13th, the same time, 1 to 2 p.m. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to send us an email, and you can also visit the BHA website for more information. We will send all of this out as well. So thank you all so much for coming. Hope you have a good Valentine's Day and just a great rest of your week.